of it nowadays, was anchored in a world that was related to overall knowledge, which makes him a scholar. That I want to say that if it only were somebody who wanted to, create a new homeland and all this and that, he would have been lost as a scholar. But because he was a scholar and anchored in these fields, that he remained that. And then about Hebrew, the superimposing Hebrew on melodies which are not necessarily Jewish is because Hebrew indeed was the greatest success of the return to Palestine. Hebrew is the symbolically was the success and still is its success, despite all the horrible stuff that takes place nowadays. that is saying that it's not idiosyncratic to Idelsohn. To the second point about the Yemenites, I want to say again that the emphasis on the Yemenites went hand in hand in the development of ethnography. And he didn't invent it. All I'm trying to say, he doesn't pick all of a sudden the Yemenites or picks the natives or how one treats it. It is within the trajectory of ethnography, again, which makes him a scholar. I'm trying to emphasize that because everything gets lost in this kind of claim of identities and this and that, all which is true, which has a. But first of all, to say why he is central. Then about the difference between Hebrew music versus Jewish music. The difference is that here it was Alt Neuland. Alt Neuland. In order to justify the Neuland, one had to look at its relationship to the past. In America, it is the survival of Jews in America. It is not Alt Neuland. It is Neu. It doesn't have to be related to anything Alt. And therefore, it is a natural emphasis on the communities which he addresses. And it is not just that he changed it in ideology and whatever it is. It is only that his audience, here it was important, this is what was also important to the Hebrew University as it developed. What is going to be studied? How are we going to connect to that altness? Yes? And so it is in order to build the new, to justify the new. Whereas in America, it is a very different story. How are we going to perpetuate it? How are we going to perpetuate Judaism? Not how we are going to relate to the past, but how are we going to perpetuate it? So in all three papers, you see the man who is responsible, who knows what he's working on, and at all times, he's not inventing something. It's not idiosyncratic, you know, here's this man, he's changing his mind, here he does this and that. It is all very well anchored, and he was and will remain a great scholar who abided by the development of all these fields, and of course, continuity and change, you know, there's always change and new things methodologically.
Thank you, Katz. We'll take another comment and then we will give you the floor, okay? Professor Galit, Hazan-Rokem. I'm just saying the names because we are recording.
I apologize if I make any mistakes because I'm an outsider, but still a neighboring outsider, I would say, as a folklorist. And I want to thank for this to be the first session I'm taking part in this conference, in this congress, because I hope it will make the whole congress inspired by the muses. So, thank you for very rich papers. And I'm not going to critique, but I want to point at two things. Three, actually. One, folklorists point at three things, usually. First of all, the concept of Hebrew melodies, of course, has a wonderfully rich genealogy, which is worthwhile to raise. The second thing is I recommend you, those of you who hear and understand Hebrew, to listen on Thursday at 5:30, I think, to the paper of Dani Schriere, who's talking about Patai and Levinsky, because the history of Idelsohn is transposed about, I think, 40 years? 40, yeah, 40 years, and is strikingly similar. And I wonder what is an internal teleology of the phenomenon? What's phenomenological about this, and what is historically conditioned? And there is an interesting, I think, tension there. The third and the last thing is, it's very interesting how we are tempted to read biographies allegorically. And I think that Ruth Katz's words about the professionality of Idelsohn were actually one way of starting to cope with the fact that there was an allegorical reading in each of the papers, probably peaking in Edwin's
response.
Summary, and because it's the nature of summary to bring the allegorical into its full fruition. But I think there is an allegorical dimension when we're reading canons, as you use the term, canons of scholarship in ideological contexts. And I think it's very important to keep marking the distance from that allegorical while you're proceeding through the historical, contextual, contingent parts of your scholarship, which was very well, I think, documented by you, but still, I think there is that critical light of making the allegorical obvious and make it clear. I find very important.
Yeah, please, Jim? No, just if you can just speak in loud voice.
Thank you, both of you, for the comments and the questions. I just wanted to react briefly to that.